Good people YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and today is the day I got the text. Tudor Black Bay Pro Day. Okay, yeah, let's just do it. Whenever I wear this mask, it always makes me feel like I'm Bane. Today's video has been sponsored by the League of Shadows. So here we are finally, and I'm so pumped for this video. I mean, so this video is going to be more of things you should know before deciding to buy one, or at the very least, you know, things you should know before just completely dismissing it based off of a few numbers on a piece of paper. So in this video, we're going to get into like the most important stuff, which is, you know, how does it feel on the wrist? You know, how does it look on the wrist? How does it compare to other watches in terms of size? I mean, just all the stuff that I absolutely love talking about and I just live for. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'll also be talking about my first impressions and things that I like and don't like about the watch and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna be doing a little bit more of an in-depth review on everything else later on, you know, after I spend some more time with it. So yeah, let's just get into it. So the very first thing that hit me was the weight, because in my mind, I was thinking that it was going to be an absolute rock, but when I held it for the very first time, it felt much lighter than I had expected. So yeah, that was definitely a very pleasant surprise. You know, obviously it's not featherweight, but the interesting thing is that it weighs a total of 168 grams, and that's 3 grams less than the Seiko SPB 143 that so many people have hailed as like the ultimate everyday Seiko. And the watch head itself is 87 grams on the Black Bay Pro versus 84 grams on the Seiko, which is the equivalent of like half a teaspoon of salt. And compared to the Black Bay 58 at 140 grams, it's overall 28 grams more, and the watch head itself is 20 grams more, which means that the balance is more or less retained, by the new clasp getting 8 grams extra. So yeah, it just feels very balanced on the wrist, which is, for me, extremely important. So because of this, it honestly just wears like a very solid sports watch, and on the wrist, it doesn't feel like a burden at all as of right now. I mean, will things change in a month or 6 months? Who knows? But the fact that it's not even registering as a considerable change is saying a lot, because I'm usually quite picky about how a watch wears on the wrist, especially on a bracelet. And a big part of that overall comfort is that the bracelet conforms to the wrist, you know, just as well as any other Black Bay, by having the lugs curved down, which helps maintain a close fit to the wrist. So yeah, when it's just chilling on my wrist, it's not really too noticeable. And when I do notice it, it's more of a feeling of solidity more than anything else. And in the end, this is perfectly fine, because I bought a sporty tool watch. So a feeling of solidity, you know, is to be expected. And also on top of that, I haven't even once noticed my wrist getting tired because of the watch. Also, it doesn't sag down when it's on the side of the wrist, which is something that irritates me quite a bit. Also, people talk about, you know, whether or not it will slip under the cuff, as I said, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was really surprised that it actually did slip under the cuff, you know, as well as it did. But a lot of that has to do with how smooth the top of the watch is, you know, without any snag points, because even a thin watch with jutting bezels and whatnot, I mean, those can snag a little bit more. Oh, and one last thing, and now with the new clasp, with the T-fit that I'll talk about later, I managed to get the perfect fit, which is something that I was not able to do like pretty much at all with the Black Bay 58. And that is something that I complained about like ad nauseum. And yeah, so yeah, very happy days. Also, if you're enjoying the level of detail, or if you're new here, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe button. Much appreciated. Okay, so we've gone into how thick the Black Bay Pro feels on the wrist, but it's also important to note how it looks on the wrist. And in short, it's not as big as a deal as I thought it would be, and pretty much everyone thought it would be. I mean, obviously it's no dress watch, but we knew that going into it. So what I'm more interested in is, and what I'm sure, you know, the rest of you guys are interested in, is how it manages the thickness, considering that, you know, Tudor does always make chunky looking watches. So yeah, here are all the dimensions, and I have them down in the description as well if you want to look at them for longer. And all the numbers look pretty standard on paper, you know, other than the 14.6 millimeter thickness, obviously, but a single thickness measurement or a single any measurement alone never gives a full picture ever. So the big number to note here in terms of what plays into the visual thickness of pretty much any watch is the mid case, and the mid case in this case is 7.3 millimeters, which is not a crazy thickness in and of itself, but since the case sides are so slab-sided, it does feel thicker than it would otherwise. But the most interesting number that everyone should pay attention to is 6.1 millimeters, which is the mid case thickness of the Black Bay 58. So the mid case is only 1.2 millimeters thicker, which is not very much at all. And that means that half of the Black Bay Pro's total thickness was thrown into the case back and bezel crystal combo. And this to me is crucial because case backs, you know, tend to pretty much disappear into your wrist unless they're giant, and then also domed crystals don't have very much visual weight since they're clear and they're not flush to the sides, so they're a little bit centered in. And this is exactly why the Speedmaster wears just so wonderfully at 13.7 millimeters thick. I mean, yeah, granted that takes it to the next level by having multiple layers and an even thinner mid case, but yeah, all that stuff plays into reducing the visual thickness. And Tudor added an extra layer, I guess, by beveling the bottom edge of the case, which further goes to reduce the effective mid-case thickness, you know, albeit in a subtle manner. Also, a big number to note here is the crown diameter, strangely enough, which is 7.5 millimeters on the Black Bay Pro compared to the Black Bay 58's 6.8 millimeter crown. And the reason why this is important is because when you look at the side of the Black Bay Pro, everything looks fine because everything looks to be proportionate, with the crown taking up, you know, pretty much the entire mid case, just like on the Black Bay 58. You know, had they used the smaller 6.8 millimeter crown from the Black Bay 58, then the case undoubtedly would have looked a bit thinner because the crown would have just looked smaller in the grand scheme of things. And the lug-to-lug distance is exactly the same as the Black Bay 58 at 47.7 millimeters, which is a really nice and comfortable size, and that helps further maintain the overall balance of the watch, and that helps also keep the weight of the watch down quite a bit. Also, I would like to note that the dimensions of the Black Bay Pro are extremely similar to the Seiko SPB 143, which is an absolutely awesome watch, and it's a watch that's seen by so many people as like the best daily watch that Seiko makes. So yeah, while I'm talking about the SPB 143, I mean, on the wrist, the Black Bay Pro to me looks smaller than that. So to me, when I look at my wrist, the Black Bay Pro looks smaller than the SPB 143, and it's also far more comfortable, which, you know, should be the case, you know, considering the price difference. So yeah, on the wrist, it does look a bit thicker than a normal watch, but absolutely not in a crazy way whatsoever. I mean, I think just like way too many of us were way too quick to completely dismiss the Black Bay Pro, you know, as way too thick. And while we can get an idea of what a watch will wear like based on the very few dimensions that we get online, none of us can ever know for sure how a watch will wear on our wrist until the watch is actually on our wrists. But yeah, I mean, granted that obviously that doesn't excuse that Tudor really should have made a thinner GMT movement for this, but yeah, that's the whole thing. Okay, on to the general things that I like about the watch. And the first thing that I actually love about it is that over the course of the first 5 days I've had it, it's gained exactly 1 second, which is insanely good by any standard, obviously. And yeah, this is just like the greatest thing for me. I mean, I just love accurate movements, and yeah, hopefully it stays this way forever. Next up is the new T-Fit clasp, which for me is probably the biggest upgrade here. Having that quick adjust bracelet comes in super clutch for me because I'm really picky about how watches on bracelets move on my wrist, and yeah, I can't stand it when it gets stuck in one place and it can't move freely the way it is right over here. And obviously in the summer, when, you know, wrists expand and contract, I mean, wearing a non-adjustable clasp just makes it, you know, a little bit more irritating to wear. And that's pretty much why I always wear rubber straps in the summer. But here, all you have to do is just sort of pull it down and slide it into place, you know, much like on a Pelagos. So it's a bit of a weird situation for me because in my mind, I see Tudors for all their bezeled watches, with rotatable bezeled watches. So, you know, like my Pelagos, the Black Bay 58s, the Black Bay GMT. So this is a very new experience for me to see something that's very Tudor, but without a rotatable bezel. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the experience right now, and also the new look and feel that I'm getting it. So yeah, although I still inherently miss a dive watch, but let's see if things change. I'm also loving the yellow GMT hand. That's full on yellow alongside the yellow 200, 650 feet, 660 feet writing, but the shape of the hand is just, you know, spot on, and I happen to love the square snowflake loom on all Tudors. So yeah, the fact that it's also tapering from the base to the top is pretty cool. So the loomed and the 3D-ness of the indices is awesome to see, especially when it's viewed at an angle, and I am really just happy that they went this way. Also, the bezel is just so much better than the bezels on the current 42mm Explorer II. And yeah, while I had my 42mm Explorer and I loved it, I just really never liked the font on those watches, and also the little triangles did nothing for me. I mean, the sunburst finish is what kept me going on that end. So here, on the other hand, we have a more classic font that I like, with the simple lines in between, and we have the sunburst finish. So yeah, it's the best way that it could have gone. Also, I'm really loving this new crown because I think it looks so much better than the Black Bay 58 crown, and yeah, it's just miles better in terms of actual utility because it makes turning the crown an absolute breeze, and yeah, you'll never not have grip. So nothing is ever perfect, and the first thing that I'm not liking is the Fotina, and I really don't think that there was any need for it here, even though it's not very noticeable when I'm inside. But when you're in brighter lights and outside, you can definitely see you know, a very full chill beige color of everything, including the date window, which is color match. I just think that pure white indices and writing would have suited this watch much more, you know, especially considering that the Blue Bay and the 925 both have stark white loom. And yeah, I see the Black Bay Pro as a more pure tool watch than either one of those. And you know, given the more modern yellow North Flaggy elements on the dial and the Pro name, I mean, it would have been awesome to see this as a Pro tool. And I'm fine with the riveted bracelet. You know, I'm not like as vehemently against it as a lot of people are, but at the same time, I don't think that it was really necessary here, you know, on this watch that's supposed to be a modern Pro watch. I mean, it would have looked insanely good, you know, had it been on just a normal 3-link, you know, Oyster bracelet. Okay, so there you have it. I could go on for hours about this watch. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions about it, and let me know what you think of the watch in general if you haven't already done so during the video. But yeah, of course, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button, and because I'll be putting out more videos on the Black Bay Pro as time passes and as things change. So yeah, until the next video, good day.